How do you get over self-hate? This is going to be a tough thing to talk about. But let me ask you a question before I go further. Have you ever stood in a crowd of people and had a smile on your face, and everybody probably looked up to you, or they pat you on the shoulder, and they just want to, some of them probably want to be like you, or they call you all the time for advice? Are you that individual? But the truth is, even though you stand in that crowd, internally you feel like you're alone. You feel like you're the only one that truly hate yourself or understand yourself. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, you truly don't care about life. If you are that person, I used to be just like that. But during my progress over life, I've discovered some things about how to overcome self-hate. The first thing that I realized is that if I was ever going to overcome the hate inside of me, I had to face what was causing the hate in the first place. You see, when I was 11 years old, my daddy left 2 weeks after he promised me personally that he wouldn't leave the family. And when I walked into my daddy's closet and seen that it was empty, the first thing I started to do is to hate myself, because I blamed myself for my daddy leaving. And then I started to compare myself to other kids, how I used to see friends in elementary school like me who fathers used to come to the school and hug them and pick them up, or to be there when their mama was there to see their progress in school. And I used to think to myself, that kid must be better than me, or it's something special about that kid. That's why his father stayed at home. And over years, that hatred started to take over, because the hatred for myself was the hatred that I had for my daddy for leaving. I hated my daddy so much that I wanted him to die. Have you ever hated somebody like that? That you want that person to die, that you wish evil things on them because of something that person did? Have you hated somebody like that to the point that you start to hate yourself? And see, that's what I was dealing with all those years. And I knew in order for me to get over that self-hate, I would have to forgive my daddy. Now, as we know, forgiving people for anything is easier said than done. When I was in elementary school, I had that hate. I went to middle school with that hate. I started doing drugs. I started hanging out with bad crowds. I started just acting a fool, disrespecting my mama, wanting to hurt other people because of the self-hate. It wasn't until I got to my senior year, my sophomore year of college, that I decided to call my daddy and forgive him for leaving the family. And at that moment, I discovered that forgiveness was my key to open up me no longer hating myself. I wasn't forgiving my daddy because of him. I was forgiving my daddy for me. I was forgiving him because I knew if I kept hating my daddy for leaving, it was going to cause me to keep hating myself, and I probably would have ended up killing myself. And I'm sure there's a lot of you all out there, you dealing with that self-hate. Maybe your father left or your mother left. Maybe you never even met your parents. Maybe you're a rape victim. Maybe you're dealing with your sexual orientation. I don't know what it is, but you have that self-hate, that hate that's inside of you, that's boiling up inside of you, that sometimes you wake up, you feel such a tight knot in your chest, and you don't even want to live. You don't even see any purpose to live. And you just want to make that pain go away. You just want to feel normal. You just want to be that person standing in a crowd, smiling amongst your friends, your family, or whoever you with, and you don't want to feel alone anymore. You want to give over that you want to get over that self-hate. So I want to suggest some things to you. I want you to take the time and sit down with yourself and write down all the reasons that you hate yourself. Maybe you don't like the way you look. Maybe you don't like something that happened in your past. Maybe you're dealing with some type of loss. I don't know what it is, but just write it down. And I want you to ask yourself the question. Whatever it is that's causing you to hate yourself, it may be something that you cannot change, or it may be somebody you cannot change. And I want to encourage you to accept that. See, I had to accept the fact my daddy left the family 2 weeks after he told me he wouldn't. I had to accept the fact that I was a kid that grew up without a father. I had to accept the fact that despite the fact that I am an African American male growing up in the hood, that I do not have to let that define me. I had to accept the fact that even though my daddy was not committed to the family, even though he wasn't committed to me as a son or my sister or anybody else, that I can make a decision to make a commitment to love myself. So I want to encourage you to make that commitment for yourself, to love yourself by accepting the things that happened to you in your past, accepting that you may not like things about yourself physically, accepting your own identity, whatever that is. Because through acceptance, you will find the strength in yourself to forgive. You see, by accepting myself growing up in a fatherless home and my daddy leaving the way he did, and starting to see myself as a person, as an individual who can make his own choices, I was able to find that strength within myself to forgive, because I realized that by hating myself, I was letting my daddy win a battle that he wasn't even fighting. It was a battle I created in my own mind, that if I hate him enough, he will start to love me. If I hate him enough, he will ask for my forgiveness. If I hate him enough, he will beg to be a part of my life. But when I accept myself, I realize that's not important. It's up to me to forgive so I can be free. It's up for me to forgive myself. It's up to me to love myself. And because I was able to start doing those things, I was able to make that phone call and forgive my daddy for leaving the family. So my question to you is, what is causing you to hate yourself? What is causing you to feel like you have no value in life? Is it something that you can change? Probably not. But if it is something that you can change, how important is it for you to make that change? One thing I learned is this, that when we accept ourselves and we forgive ourselves and forgive others and be free, we will have the power within to encourage other people to forgive so they can be free from that self-hate that is destroying them from within. That self-hate that makes them feel like they have no value. That self-hate that makes you want to just give up in life. You know, when I started becoming vulnerable over the years, and I started doing public speaking, I started going into juvenile detention centers is where I started. And I started being vulnerable and started talking about the self-hate that I had to deal with. And what I discovered when I was in that room with both males and female teenagers who were struggling with themselves, that the one thing they identified with more than anything was self-hate. There was a young lady in one juvenile detention center I was in. I was talking about how I used to hate myself because I had all this unforgiveness to my daddy. So I called him after I realized that his uncommitment to the family had nothing to do with me. It's up to me to love me, and it's up to me to accept me. It's up to me to forgive me for hating him so much. And I was able to make that call, not for him, but for me. And so she raised her hand up. She said, you know, explain to me again, why'd you do it? And I say, why are you asking me this question? What is it that you're dealing with, somebody that you're hating? What is causing you to hate yourself? What is it? And she said, you know, Mr. Mosley, I just want to tell you that, you know, my daddy was in prison, you know, and we used to write each other every week. And he used to, in his letters, he used to tell me that, you know, when he get out of prison, we're going to have this mother and daughter relationship. You know, we're going to be like a family, he and I will get to know him. And he eventually got out of prison. And when he got out, I went and spent the weekend with him. And that was the first time in my life I felt accepted. That's the first time I felt love. And it caused me to start to feel more love for myself, because I finally had the approval of my daddy. But the crazy thing is, the next week, Mr. Mosley, my daddy, he killed himself. And I cannot help but think my daddy killed himself because I wasn't good enough for him. I wasn't good enough for him to live. I wasn't good enough for him to be happy. So that's just what's causing me to hate myself. But not only that, I hate my daddy for leaving. I hate him for killing himself. And I feel it's my fault. And I look that young lady in the eyes and I say, look, you can spend years of your life hating your daddy. You can hate him and hate him and hate him, but I can tell you right now, it will be the most lonely feeling in the world because you will always have hatred inside of you for you because you are spending so much of your energy hating your daddy. So if there's anything I can tell you is that I can encourage you to do is don't forgive your daddy for, his sake or anything like that because your daddy is gone. He's committed suicide. Forgive your daddy for you. Because if you don't forgive him, you will never be free of that self-hate. And as some of you are right now, you got that self-hate. So I want to encourage you to forgive yourself so you can forgive others. Free yourself of that self-hate because one thing I've learned that when you free yourself of self-hatred, you start letting the world see your true beauty. You start sharing your story. You start encouraging others. You start letting that positive energy flow through you. And when you stand in a group of people, you stand with confidence. You stand knowing that you are there to help those around you who are dealing with self-hate, to help those who are trying to develop their confidence. You become a spokesman for those who are trying to get out of that pit of self-hate. You have so much to live for. You have so many people that you can inspire with your story. So forgive yourself. Forgive others if need be. So you can free yourself of your self-hate.